Hello there, and welcome to the Sleep Porch. Tonight, we are drifting into a world that exists all around you, yet remains completely unseen. A realm where matter behaves in strange and beautiful ways, where the rules you know begin to soften, and where human curiosity has learned to work at the smallest scales imaginable. This is the quiet frontier of nanotechnology, a realm shaped by quantum forces where medicine grows intelligent and light, heat, and motion behave in unfamiliar ways. It is a world defined by subtlety, precision, and patience. The closer you look, the more unexpected it becomes. As we move gently through this hidden dimension, we begin to glimpse the very edges of reality itself, where the smallest changes can give rise to truly extraordinary outcomes. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Allow your body to soften and your eyes to grow heavy. And let your mind settle into this hidden realm. Let's begin. Scientists can build machines smaller than a single red blood cell. When you hear the word machine, your mind might picture gears, motors, and metal parts you could hold in your hand. But at the nanoscale, a machine can be a shape so small that a living cell could drift past it, like a whale passing a pebble. Researchers build these tiny devices with tools that feel almost like science fiction, using beams of electrons to sculpt patterns, or using chemistry itself as a kind of assembly line. What makes this so thrilling is not just the size, it is the idea of function at a scale where friction, gravity, and even common sense stop behaving normally. A tiny mechanical arm can be made to flex. A miniature cage can open and close. A nanoscale rotor can spin when light hits it. The most exciting part is what this could mean in the real world. A machine that small can move through places no normal tool could ever reach. Spaces deep inside materials, between trapped layers, and potentially even through the crowded interior of the body, where every micrometer matters. Carbon atoms can be rolled into tubes stronger than steel and thinner than DNA. Imagine taking carbon, the same element that can become soot, pencil, graphite, or diamond, and arranging it with such precision that it forms a tube only a few atoms thick. That is a carbon nanotube. A structure that looks simple in the diagram but is astonishing in reality. Its strength does not come from bulk or weight. It comes from the way the atoms lock together in a repeating pattern that leaves almost no weak points. Pull on it, and instead of snapping like a brittle strand, the force spreads through the lattice, like tension in a perfectly woven net. At the same time, its thinness is almost hard to picture. If you could enlarge a nanotube until it was as thick as a garden hose, a strand of DNA next to it would look like a much wider rope. These tubes can also conduct electricity in unusual ways, sometimes behaving more like perfect wires than the metals in your home. What makes them so captivating is the sense that a single material can hold strength, flexibility, and electrical charge all at once, simply because of geometry at the smallest possible scale. Nanotechnology allows materials to become waterproof without feeling coated. Most waterproofing you have encountered comes with a trade-off. It feels waxy, rubbery, or sealed, like a barrier has been painted on top of the fabric or surface. Nanotechnology offers a sneakier approach that feels almost like cheating, because it can change how water behaves without covering something in a thick layer. The trick is in texture so tiny you cannot see it, a landscape of microscopic bumps, ridges, and air pockets that water cannot easily sink into. When droplets land, they perch on the high points, barely touching the material, and they roll away with the slightest tilt, as if the surface is actively refusing them. This can be done in ways that keep a fabric breathable, because air can still move through the gaps even while water is pushed out. It is the difference between sealing a window shut and building a screen door that only blocks the thing you do not want. What is most fascinating is that the effect can come from structure rather than chemicals, meaning the same base material can feel normal to your hands while behaving like it has learned a new rule of physics when rain arrives. Some nanomaterials are designed to bend light around objects. Light feels so direct, it travels in straight lines. It casts sharp shadows, and it reveals what is there. But at the nanoscale, engineers can build materials that persuade light to take unfamiliar paths, curving and wrapping instead of moving forward like an arrow. The secret is not magic, it is design. These materials can be built with tiny, repeating structures, smaller than the wavelength of light itself. So light interacts with the pattern as if it is moving through a carefully scripted maze. Instead of reflecting normally, the waves of light can be guided, redirected, or even delayed in ways that do not happen in natural materials. This is one of the ideas behind cloaking research, where the goal is to steer light around a region so the light continues onward as if nothing were there, leaving no obvious shadow or reflection, even when perfect invisibility remains elusive. The same underlying science can lead to practical wonders, like lenses that are thinner than you would think possible, sensors that capture more information from faint light, and optical devices that can be flattened into surfaces. It is a powerful thought that by shaping matter on a tiny scale, you can reshape the behavior of light itself. A particle of gold can turn red when it becomes small enough. Gold feels like one of the most predictable substances on Earth, heavy, shiny, and forever yellow. You shrink it down far enough, and it starts behaving like a completely different material, one that can glow with ruby reds or deep purples depending on its size and surroundings. The surprise comes from how light interacts with the particle. At this tiny scale, the electrons in the gold do not respond like they do in a solid bar or a wedding ring. Instead, they can sway together in a coordinated motion when light hits them, almost like a crowd moving in rhythm. That collective motion changes which colors get absorbed and which colors get scattered back to your eyes. The result is a kind of color tuning that comes purely from size and structure, not from dyes or paint. This is why some stained glass windows can hold brilliant reds that do not fade over centuries. Because the color can come from tiny gold particles embedded in the glass, it is a reminder that color is not always about what something is made of. It can be about how it is built. A surface can be made so slippery that water cannot stay on it. Slippery surfaces usually rely on smoothness, like polished ice or glass. But the most extreme water repellents can come from something more clever. Scientists can create surfaces that do not just resist water, they refuse to let it settle at all. One approach uses a microscopic texture that holds a thin layer of liquid in place like a lubricant locked into tiny pores. When a dropper touches down, it is not landing on a solid, it is landing on a stable liquid layer that offers almost no pinning points. The droplet slides off easily, sometimes even when the surface is nearly flat. This is different from traditional water repellents, where droplets can still catch on small imperfections. Here, the droplet has nothing to grip. The result is exciting for reasons beyond novelty. If water cannot cling, neither can many forms of grime. Ice has a harder time forming. Bacteria struggle to establish a foothold. Even thick, sticky fluids are able to slide away with surprising ease. It feels as though the surface has been quietly trained to remain clean by its very nature. What gives this quality a sense of the future is that it transforms a passive object into an active behavior. The material is not simply resting in place, it is continuously discouraging attachment through its nanoscale design, responding without effort, moment after moment. Nanoparticles can pass through cell walls that block normal medicines. A living cell is not an open room with doors wide enough for anything to stroll through. It is more like a guarded city, wrapped in a membrane that decides what enters and what stays out. Many medicines fail not because they are ineffective, but because they cannot reach the right place inside the body, or they cannot get into the right cells once they arrive. Nanoparticles can change that story, because their size and surface chemistry can be tuned to interact with cells in ways larger molecules cannot. Some are taken up through natural cellular processes, where the cell membrane folds inward and forms a tiny bubble that pulls the particle inside. Others can slip through porous barriers that would block a bulkier drug. What is truly captivating is the idea that delivery can be engineered like a key, not just a chemical that drifts around hoping to collide with the right target. By adjusting the particle's coating, its charge, or the way it behaves in water, researchers can encourage it to avoid certain immune defenses, circulate longer, or enter specific tissues more readily. It is a shift in perspective from medicine as a blunt substance to medicine as a designed traveler built to navigate the body's checkpoints. Doctors can guide magnetic nanoparticles through the body using external fields. Picture a doctor holding an invisible steering wheel outside the body, influencing tiny travelers inside it. Magnetic nanoparticles make that idea real in experimental settings because they respond to magnetic fields even when they are far beneath skin and tissue. These particles can be designed to carry drugs, imaging agents, or other helpful payloads. And a carefully shaped magnetic field can encourage them to drift toward a chosen region. It is not like pulling a metal spoon across a table, because the body is a complex, flowing environment full of branching vessels and constant motion. That is exactly why the concept is so fascinating. It turns the problem of delivery into something closer to navigation. Researchers explore how field strength, timing, and geometry can influence where particles accumulate and how to avoid unintended buildup in places like the liver or spleen. There is also a beautiful link to medical imaging, since magnetic behavior is already central to techniques like magnetic resonance imaging. In the long run, the dream is precision with minimal collateral effects, guiding helpful material toward a problem site while leaving the rest of the body largely undisturbed. It is a quiet revolution, using forces you cannot see to move tools you cannot see, all in the service of healing. Some experimental cancer treatments rely on nanoparticles heating tumors from the inside. One of the hardest challenges in cancer treatment is harming the tumor while sparing healthy tissue nearby. Heating a tumor can damage cancer cells, but heating the whole region from the outside can also harm everything around it. Nanoparticles offer a more targeted approach, because they can be designed to accumulate in tumor tissue and then convert energy into heat right where it is needed. In some methods, magnetic nanoparticles warm up when exposed to an alternating magnetic field. In others, particles absorb certain wavelengths of light and transform that light into heat, a strategy often explored with materials like gold nanostructures. The tumor becomes a place where energy is turned into local warmth, not because the entire body is heated, but because the particles act like tiny heaters embedded within the problem. What makes this so compelling is the precision of the trigger. The particles can remain relatively quiet until the external field or light is applied. And then the treatment becomes active on command. Researchers study how to control temperature, how to avoid overheating, and how to combine heating with chemotherapy or immunotherapy for stronger effects. It is an example of nanotechnology turning therapy into choreography, timing, location, and activation working together. Nanotechnology can make drugs activate only when they reach a specific cell type. A powerful drug can be a curse if it acts everywhere instead of only where it is needed. That is why researchers dream of medicines that stay silent while traveling, then switch on only when they meet the right kind of cell. Nanotechnology helps because nanoparticles can carry drugs in a protected form, wrapped, caged, or chemically masked, so they cannot act too early. Then the particle is designed with a molecular recognition strategy, like a surface that binds to receptors found mainly on the target cell type, or a coating that responds to local conditions inside a tumor. Microenvironment. Some designs use enzymes as a trigger because certain enzymes are more active in specific tissues. Others respond to acidity, since some diseased tissues have a different chemical atmosphere than healthy ones. When the particle reaches the right place, the environment itself becomes the signal that unlocks the drug, releasing it or activating it in a controlled way. The thrilling part is the idea of behavior, not just chemistry. The medicine does not simply exist, it waits, it travels, it checks conditions, and it acts only when the context is right. That shift could mean fewer side effects, higher effective doses where they matter, and a future where treatment feels more like precision engineering than blunt force. Nanoparticles can be programmed to fall apart after completing a task. One of the strangest ideas in nanotechnology is that a material can be designed with an expiration date built directly into its structure. These nanoparticles are not meant to last forever. They are created to perform a specific job, then quietly disassemble themselves once that job is done. The trigger can be something as subtle as a change in acidity, temperature, or chemical environment. Inside the body, this matters enormously because persistence is not always a good thing. A particle that lingers too long can interfere with healthy processes. By contrast, a particle that breaks down into harmless components becomes almost invisible once its role is finished. What makes this idea so captivating is the shift in mindset. Materials are no longer static objects. They are temporary participants in a process. They arrive, act, and leave. This allows scientists to design delivery systems that release a drug, sense a condition, or perform a repair, then dissolve into pieces small enough to be cleared naturally. It is a form of engineering that respects time as much as function. Tiny nanoscale sensors can detect single molecules in the air. Detecting a single molecule sounds impossible, until you remember how sensitive physics can become at very small scales. Nanoscale sensors are often built so that one tiny interaction creates an outsized effect. When a single molecule lands on the sensor, it can change electrical properties, alter vibration patterns, or shift how light behaves. These changes are small, but they are measurable. This allows detection of substances at concentrations so low they would otherwise disappear into background noise. What makes this especially fascinating is how it changes awareness. Instead of sampling large volumes and averaging results, these sensors notice individual events as they happen. A lone pollutant molecule, a trace chemical signal, a faint marker of disease. The world becomes less blurry and more precise. This capability opens doors to early warning systems, environmental monitoring, and medical diagnostics that operate before symptoms appear. It is like giving technology a sense of smell so sharp that even whispers in the air can no longer hide. Some nanomaterials glow brighter as they get smaller. In everyday life, shrinking something usually makes it weaker or dimmer. At the nanoscale, the opposite can happen. Certain materials become brighter as they shrink, producing intense, vivid light from structures too small to see. This happens because electrons inside the material are confined to extremely tight spaces. When they absorb energy, they have fewer options for how to respond, so they release that energy as light, with remarkable efficiency. The color and brightness depend on size rather than composition, meaning the same material can glow differently simply by being made smaller or larger. What makes this so enchanting is that light becomes a design choice rather than a fixed property. Scientists can tune brightness and color with astonishing precision. These glowing particles can be used to label cells, track biological processes, or create displays that are thinner and more energy efficient. It is a reminder that scale alone can unlock behaviors that feel almost magical, revealing light where darkness would be expected. Nanotechnology allows scientists to build artificial structures that mimic viruses. Viruses are masters of efficiency. They are small, precise, and incredibly good at entering cells. Nanotechnology allows scientists to borrow these strategies without borrowing the danger. Artificial virus-like structures can be built to match the size, shape, and surface patterns that cells naturally recognize. This allows them to slip inside cells using the same pathways viruses exploit, but without carrying harmful genetic material. What makes this so powerful is control. Every feature can be tuned, from how strongly the structure binds to a cell to what it releases once inside. These artificial constructs can deliver medicine, trigger immune responses, or help scientists study how cells behave under specific conditions. Rather than working against biology, this approach moves in harmony with it. By using familiar biological entry points instead of force, it gently blurs the line between what is natural and what is engineered. In doing so, it reveals how deeply scientists are learning from the smallest and most elegant machines nature has ever created. Some nanoscale coatings take this even further, preventing bacteria from attaching to surfaces in the first place, quietly protecting without confrontation, effort, or resistance. Bacteria rarely cause trouble unless they can settle in and stay put. Many infections begin with attachment. When microbes cling to a surface and start forming communities, nanocoatings can interrupt this process at the very first step. By engineering surface textures at extremely small scales, scientists can create environments where bacteria simply cannot get a grip. Some coatings disrupt how bacterial membranes interact with the surface. Others make attachment energetically unfavorable, causing microbes to drift away before they can settle. What is striking is that this approach does not rely on killing bacteria directly. Instead, it prevents the problem from starting. This reduces the pressure that leads to resistance, since there is no chemical attack to adapt to.
These coatings can be used on medical devices, implants, and high-touch surfaces,
quietly lowering infection risk without constant cleaning or harsh treatments. It is prevention through physics rather than force. Nanofibers can be thinner than smoke particles and still block them. Filtering something usually means stopping it with a barrier that is visibly solid. Nanofibers changed that idea completely. These fibers can be thinner than the particles they block, yet still form highly effective filters when woven into dense networks. The secret lies in how particles move through air. Smoke particles do not travel in straight lines. They drift, bounce, and wander due to constant collisions. Nanofiber networks take advantage of this randomness, increasing the chances that particles will collide with the fiber and stick. At the same time, air flows through easily because the fibers are so thin that they offer little resistance. This creates filters that are both breathable and highly effective. What makes this so compelling is the elegance of the solution. Instead of brute thickness, efficiency comes from understanding motion at small scales. It allows protective masks, air filters, and ventilation systems to work better without feeling heavy or restrictive. Water filters built with nanotechnology can remove contaminants smaller than bacteria. Bacteria are already tiny, yet water can contain contaminants even smaller. Traditional filters struggle at this scale because stopping such small particles often means blocking water flow as well. Nanotechnology offers a way around this problem by building filters with precisely controlled pore sizes and surface properties. These filters do not rely solely on physical blocking. They can also attract and trap specific contaminants through electrical charge or chemical affinity. As water passes through, unwanted particles are captured, while clean water continues onward. The result is filtration that reaches into a realm once considered unreachable. This has enormous implications for clean water access, especially in places where contamination is subtle rather than obvious. It means removing materials that cannot be seen, tasted, or smelled, yet still pose long-term risks. The fascination lies in how invisible structures can protect against invisible threats, quietly improving safety one molecule at a time. Some nanomaterials can pull heavy metals out of water, molecule by molecule. Heavy metals in water are dangerous precisely because they can exist at low concentrations while causing serious harm over time. Nanomaterials can be engineered to seek out these metals with remarkable selectivity. Their surfaces are designed to bind tightly to specific metal ions, grabbing them as water flows past. Each interaction happens at the molecular level, one binding event at a time. Over time, this adds up to significant purification. What makes this approach so exciting is its efficiency. Instead of treating large volumes of water with harsh chemicals, these materials work quietly and continuously. Once saturated, they can often be regenerated and reused. This turns cleanup into a targeted process rather than a blunt intervention. It also allows recovery of valuable metals that would otherwise be lost. The idea that water can be cleaned with such precision feels almost surgical, replacing broad treatment with deliberate capture. Nanotechnology can create self-ting surfaces activated by sunlight. Imagine a surface that cleans itself simply by being exposed to daylight. Nanotechnology makes this possible by combining special coatings with light-activated chemistry. When sunlight hits the surface, it triggers reactions that break down organic dirt and grime into smaller components that can be washed away by rain or moisture. At the same time, these surfaces are often engineered to spread water evenly, preventing streaks and residue. What makes this so remarkable is how passive it is. No scrubbing, no chemicals, no effort. The surface simply uses energy that is already available. This approach can be applied to windows, tiles, and outdoor materials, reducing maintenance while keeping environments cleaner. It also highlights a broader theme in nanotechnology, where materials are designed to interact intelligently with their surroundings. The surface is not inert. It responds, adapts, and maintains itself using physics and chemistry at the smallest scales. A nanoscale change can determine whether a material conducts electricity or not. At large scales, electrical conductivity feels like a fixed property. A material either conducts electricity or it does not. At the nanoscale, that certainty disappears. A change so small it cannot be seen can completely alter how electrons move. Adjusting thickness, spacing, or structure by a tiny amount can open or close pathways for electrical flow. This allows the same material to behave like a conductor, an insulator, or something in between, depending on how it is built. What makes this so fascinating is the level of control it offers. Engineers can design electrical behavior into a material without changing its chemical makeup. This is essential for modern electronics, where components must be incredibly small, yet precisely defined. It also shows how properties we take for granted are not inherent truths, but outcomes shaped by structure. At the nanoscale, electricity becomes a matter of architecture. Computer chips already rely on structures only a few dozen atoms wide. When you tap a screen or open an app, it feels instant and effortless. Yet beneath that smooth experience lies a world balanced on the edge of the possible. Inside modern computer chips, electrical pathways are so narrow that only a few dozen atoms span their width. At that scale, electrons no longer behave like obedient currents flowing through tidy wires. They feel edges. They scatter. They hesitate. A single misplaced atom can act like a fallen boulder in a narrow road, slowing or deflecting the flow. Engineers must design these structures with astonishing care, layering patterns so precise that they approach the limits of what matter itself allows. What makes this so breathtaking is that the entire digital world depends on this fragile choreography. Messages, images, and calculations all rely on electrons navigating landscapes smaller than most molecules. As these features shrink further, engineers are forced to invent entirely new ways of thinking because the old rules simply stop working. The modern computer chip is not just technology. It is a continuous negotiation with reality at its smallest scale. At nanoscale sizes, heat can behave in completely unexpected ways. In everyday life, heat feels predictable. It spreads, fades, and flows from hot to cold without surprises. Shrink a system down to the nanoscale, and that intuition starts to unravel. Heat can stall at invisible boundaries, leap across tiny gaps, or travel preferentially along specific atomic pathways. In some nanoruptures, heat behaves less like a gentle diffusion and more like a guided vibration,
moving in pulses rather than spreading evenly. This matters deeply for modern technology because small devices can trap heat in places no sensor can easily detect. Engineers can no longer treat temperature as an afterthought.
They must design routes for heat the same way they design routes for electricity. What makes this so fascinating is that warmth becomes something that can be shaped. By adjusting structure at unimaginably small scales, scientists can decide where heat lingers and where it escapes. Temperature stops being passive and becomes an engineered feature of the material itself. Nanotechnology makes flexible electronics possible without breaking circuits. For decades, electronics demanded stiffness. Bend a circuit too far and it would crack, snap, or fail without warning. Nanotechnology rewrites that rule by changing what a circuit looks like at its smallest level. Instead of rigid lines etched into hard surfaces, electrical pathways can be formed from ultra-thin meshes, wavy traces, or networks of tiny conductive particles. When the material bends, these pathways stretch and shift rather than breaking apart. The result is electronics that can curve, fold, and flex while continuing to function normally. This opens the door to devices that move with the body, screens that wrap around objects, and sensors that conform to irregular surfaces. What makes this especially compelling is that flexibility does not come at the cost of performance. The very nanoscale structures that allow movement also maintain stable and reliable electrical behavior. Strength is no longer defined by resistance to change, but by the ability to adapt to it with grace. In this same spirit, some experimental memory devices stores information using individual molecules, showing how resilience and precision can coexist at the smallest scales imaginable. Traditional memory relies on large collections of electrons to store a single piece of information. Nanotechnology pushes this idea to its extreme by allowing individual molecules to act as memory units. A single molecule can shift between stable states, changing its shape, charge, or conductivity in a controlled way. Each shift can represent stored information. The promise is staggering. Vast amounts of data could fit into spaces smaller than a grain of sand. But the challenge is just as profound. Molecules are sensitive to heat, vibration, and their chemical surroundings. Keeping them stable enough to remember requires extraordinary precision. What makes this idea so captivating is how it blurs the line between chemistry and computation. Memory is no longer etched into solid structures. It is encoded in the behavior of matter itself. Information becomes something that molecules carry, not something imposed upon them from above. Nanomaterials allow screens to be thinner, brighter, and more durable. Every screen is a careful conversation between light and material. Nanomaterials give engineers new ways to guide that conversation. Tiny structures can direct light outward instead of letting it scatter inside the screen, making displays appear brighter without using more energy. Other nanoscale layers sharpen colors by controlling how specific wavelengths pass through or are converted. At the same time, nearly weightless coatings can protect surfaces from scratches and wear, reinforcing glass without adding bulk. The result is a screen that feels lighter and slimmer, yet performs better and lasts longer. What makes this so remarkable is that improvement comes from refinement rather than addition. Instead of piling on material, engineers sculpt it. A layer too thin to see can determine how vivid an image appears and how long the surface stays clear. It is a quiet transformation that touches devices people interact with every day. Transparent conductors made from nanoruptures can replace brittle metals. Many modern displays depend on transparent layers that conduct electricity while letting light pass through. Traditional materials can do this, but they are fragile and prone to cracking. Nano-ruptured conductors offer an elegant alternative. Networks of ultra-thin wires, tubes, or particles form invisible pathways that carry current while remaining flexible. Because these networks have many overlapping routes, damage in one spot does not necessarily stop the flow. Light passes through easily while electricity finds its way across the surface. What makes this so exciting is reliability. Screens become less delicate, devices survive bending and daily wear more easily. Transparency and conductivity stop competing with each other. They coexist through structure rather than brute material strength. It is a subtle shift that removes a long-standing weakness from modern electronics. Nanotechnology enables electronics that stretch without losing function. Stretching an electronic device used to mean destroying it. Nanotechnology changes that by designing circuits that expect movement. Conductive paths can be arranged in coiled or serpentine shapes that straighten when pulled and relax when released. In other designs, conductive nanoparticles are embedded in soft materials, maintaining contact even as the surface stretches. This allows electronics to elongate repeatedly without losing function. The possibilities feel almost organic. Sensors that move with skin, wearable devices that adapt to motion, medical tools that stretch as tissues shift. What makes this so fascinating is how closely it mirrors living systems. Biology stretches constantly without breaking. Nanotechnology brings electronics closer to that same resilience, not by making them harder, but by making them adaptable. Movement becomes part of how the device survives. Certain nanoscale patterns can trap light instead of reflecting it. Most surfaces announce themselves by reflecting light. At the nanoscale, surfaces can be designed to do the opposite. Carefully arranged patterns guide incoming light into tiny corridors where it bounces again and again, losing energy with each interaction. Instead of escaping, the light becomes trapped. This can make a surface appear unusually dark, but the deeper value lies in control. Trapped light can be harvested more efficiently, detected more sensitively, or prevented from interfering with measurements. What makes this so striking is that reflection, which feels like a basic property of matter, becomes optional. Geometry takes command. A pattern invisible to the eye decides whether light leaves immediately or lingers long enough to be used. It is a reminder that even light can be persuaded when structure is subtle enough. Materials can be engineered to absorb nearly all incoming light. There exists a kind of darkness that feels deeper than shadow. Nanotechnology makes it possible by building surfaces filled with tiny cavities and spikes that swallow light almost completely. Photons enter the structure and scatter repeatedly, losing any chance of escape. Eventually, their energy turns into heat, leaving almost no reflection behind. This extreme absorption is not just visually dramatic. It improves optical instruments by eliminating stray light. It sharpens measurements and increases efficiency wherever light needs to be captured. What makes this so fascinating is that blackness becomes an engineered outcome. Darkness is no longer the absence of light. It is the result of deliberate structure built atom by atom to capture illumination the moment it arrives. Nanostructures can amplify electric fields far beyond normal limits. Electric fields usually spread out and weaken with distance. At the nanoscale, shape can force them to concentrate into astonishingly intense regions. Sharp tips, narrow gaps, and tiny features cause electric forces to crowd together, creating hotspots where fields become dramatically stronger. In these regions,
molecules feel powerful influences that would normally require far greater energy. This amplification allows sensors to detect faint signals and enables chemical reactions that would otherwise be unlikely. What makes this so compelling is efficiency. Enormous effects arise from very little material. A slight change in geometry can transform a gentle field into a focused force. It is another example of a recurring theme at the nanoscale, where design replaces brute strength, and small structures produce outsized consequences. Gecko feet cling to walls using nanoscale forces rather than glue. A gecko running up a wall looks like it is defying gravity. Yet the secret lies not in stickiness, suction, or claws. Each foot is covered in millions of tiny hairs, and each of those hairs branches into even smaller tips at the nanoscale. When these tips touch a surface, they come close enough for weak electrical attractions to arise between atoms. One connection is insignificant, but millions acting together create a powerful grip. What makes this so remarkable is how reversible it is. The gecko does not get stuck. By changing the angle of its foot, it can release the contact instantly and take the next step. No residue, no damage, just physics quietly doing its work. This discovery reshaped how scientists think about adhesion, inspiring dry adhesives that work without chemicals. It is a reminder that nature often achieves incredible feats not by overpowering forces, but by multiplying subtle ones until they matter. Butterfly wings create color using nanoruptures instead of pigment. The brilliant blues and shimmering greens of butterfly wings are not always painted on with color at all. In many species, the color comes from intricate nanoruptures built into the scales of the wings. These structures interact with light, reflecting specific wavelengths while canceling others. As light moves through the tiny layers and ridges, certain colors reinforce themselves and emerge vividly. The effect can even change with viewing angle, creating shimmering hues that seem alive. What makes this so fascinating is that the color never fades, because nothing is being dyed or bleached. It is purely structural. Even crushed or aged, the wings can retain their brilliance. Scientists study these patterns not just for beauty, but for insight into creating color without chemicals. Displays, coatings, and security features can all benefit from this approach. It reveals that color can be built, not applied, shaped by geometry rather than substance. Lotus leaves stay clean because of nanoscale surface textures. A lotus leaf can emerge spotless from muddy water, as if dirt simply refuses to stay. The secret lies in a surface covered with tiny bumps layered across multiple scales. At the nanoscale, these textures trap air and drastically reduce contact between water and the leaf. When a droplet lands, it beads up into a near-perfect sphere and rolls away, carrying dirt with it. This self-cleaning behavior is not accidental. It allows the plant to keep its surface clear for sunlight and gas exchange. What makes this so compelling is how passive it is. The leaf does not fight dirt. It simply makes attachment impossible. Engineers have copied this idea to create surfaces that clean themselves without detergents or effort. It shows how careful structure can replace constant maintenance, turning cleanliness into a built-in property rather than a chore. Shark skin resists bacteria due to microscopic structural patterns. Sharks move through water constantly exposed to microbes, yet their skin resists bacterial buildup remarkably well.
This protection does not come from chemicals or toxins, it comes from structure. The surface of shark skin is patented with tiny ridges that create an environment hostile to bacterial attachment. The spacing and shape of these features disrupt how bacteria settle and spread, preventing them from forming stable colonies. What makes this so powerful is that it avoids killing bacteria directly. There is nothing to adapt to, nothing to resist. Instead, the surface simply refuses to cooperate. Scientists have translated this idea into materials for hospitals and medical devices, where preventing bacterial attachment is often more effective than trying to destroy microbes after the fact. It is another example of nature solving a complex problem through geometry alone, quietly shaping outcomes at scales too small to see. Spider silk owes its strength to nanoscale protein arrangement. Spider silk is light, flexible, and astonishingly strong. Yet its secret is not brute material toughness. It lies in the way proteins are arranged at the nanoscale. Within each strand, regions of tightly packed protein crystals are linked by more flexible chains. When the silk is stretched, the flexible regions absorb energy, while the crystalline regions provide strength. This balance allows the silk to deform without snapping, distributing stress instead of concentrating it. What makes this so fascinating is efficiency. The spider creates this remarkable material at ordinary temperatures using gentle, water-based chemistry, yet achieves properties that can rival or even surpass many industrial fibers. Scientists study silk not to imitate it perfectly, but to understand how thoughtful structure gives rise to extraordinary performance. It quietly demonstrates that true strength does not have to come from rigidity, but can emerge from balance, flexibility, and elegant design. Sometimes, the strongest materials are those designed to yield intelligently under force. The human eye relies on nanoscale structures to detect light. Seeing feels effortless, but it depends on structures built at astonishingly small scales. Inside the eye, specialized cells contain stacks of nanoscale membranes packed with light-sensitive molecules. These molecules change shape when struck by a single photon, setting off a cascade of signals that the brain interprets as vision. The arrangement is so precise that the eye can respond to extremely low levels of light while still handling bright conditions. What makes this so remarkable is sensitivity. A process that begins with a particle of light smaller than an atom can eventually produce a rich visual experience. The eye is not just a camera, it is a nanoscale detector tuned by evolution to extract meaning from faint signals. Understanding this architecture helps scientists design better sensors and imaging systems, learning from a biological solution refined over immense spans of time. Bones gain strength from nanoscale mineral organization. Bones feel solid and rigid, yet their strength comes from an intricate internal structure built from nanoscale components. Tiny mineral crystals are embedded within a flexible protein framework, arranged in a way that balances hardness with toughness. When bone experiences stress, the structure allows slight movement at the smallest scales, preventing cracks from racing through unchecked. What makes this so captivating is how adaptable it is. Bone constantly remodels itself, adjusting structure in response to use and load. This dynamic architecture allows bones to be strong without being brittle. Engineers study this arrangement to design materials that resist fracture while remaining lightweight. It reveals that resilience often comes from cooperation between soft and hard elements woven together at scales far below what the eye can see. Some plants control water movement using nanoscale channels. Plants cannot walk to water, so they must move it efficiently once they find it inside roots and leaves. Nanoscale channels guide water with remarkable precision. These tiny pathways allow water molecules to pass rapidly while blocking unwanted substances. The flow is controlled by structure rather than pumps, relying on the physics of confinement and surface interaction. What makes this so fascinating is selectivity. Plants manage hydration, nutrient transport, and pressure balance using passive systems built at molecular scales. Scientists study these channels to inspire filtration technologies and efficient fluid control systems. It is another example of nature solving engineering challenges without motors or electronics, using geometry and chemistry instead. The plant becomes a living demonstration of nanoscale plumbing, quietly managing resources every moment it lives. Nature routinely builds materials scientists still struggle to copy. Across the natural world, materials appear that outperform many human inventions. Shells resist fracture. Feathers combine lightness with strength. Skin adapts, repairs, and protects. The common thread is nanoscale structure. Nature assembles materials layer by layer with precision that is difficult to reproduce artificially. What makes this humbling is that these materials are built under gentle conditions without extreme temperatures or pressures. They are grown, not manufactured. Scientists can often replicate individual features, but matching the full performance remains a challenge. This gap highlights how deeply structure matters. Nature does not rely on exotic ingredients. It relies on arrangement. Studying these materials shifts engineering away from brute force solutions and towards subtle design principles refined through countless generations. Studying natural nanotechnology has inspired entirely new materials. By examining how nature builds at small scales, scientists have uncovered design strategies that reshape modern material science. Surfaces that repel water, fibers that combine toughness and flexibility, structures that manage light and heat with precision. These innovations often come not from copying nature directly, but from understanding its logic. The inspiration lies in how components are arranged, how forces are distributed, and how failure is prevented. What makes this so exciting is that it expands what engineers imagine is possible. Nature becomes a library of working solutions rather than a collection of curiosities. As tools improve, scientists gain access to deeper layers of biological structure, revealing lessons that were always there, hidden in plain sight. It suggests that many of the most advanced technologies of the future may begin by paying closer attention to what already exists. Nanoparticles can move randomly due to constant molecular collisions. When you watch dust drifting in a sunbeam, it looks calm, almost sleepy. Now shrink that dust down to a nanoparticle, and the calm vanishes. It gets pelted from every side by surrounding molecules, like a tiny boat caught in endless invisible rain. Each hit is small, but they never stop. And the particle never gets a moment of stillness. It jitters, twists, and darts in a path that looks chaotic. Yet it is actually a signature of warmth itself. As long as a material has temperature, its molecules are moving, and anything small enough gets tossed around by their motion. What makes this so thrilling is that randomness becomes a usable force. Scientists design nanosystems that rely on this jitter to explore space to make sufficiently to increase the odds of finding a target. At this scale, disorder is not just noise, it is a kind of engine. At very small scales, surfaces matter more than volume. Pick up a rock, and most of it is hidden from the world. Only the outer skin touches air, water, and your fingertips. Now imagine shaving that rock down until it becomes a nanoparticle. Suddenly, there is barely any hidden interior at all. Nearly every atom is on the surface, exposed, reachable, and ready to interact. That single shift changes a material's personality. It can become more reactive, more sensitive, more eager to exchange heat or charge with whatever surrounds it. What makes this so strange is that the substance has not changed only the ratio of outside to inside. The surface stops being a boundary and becomes the main event. This is why nanomaterials can behave like entirely new substances, even when they are made of familiar elements. Designing at the nanoscale means thinking like a sculptor of interfaces. The outside is no longer a wrapper, it is the material's voice. Objects can stick together at the nanoscale without any adhesive. In the everyday world, sticking feels like a chemical trick. You add glue, you press, you wait, you peel. At the nanoscale, two clean surfaces can cling simply because they get close enough for their atoms to start tugging at each other. The forces involved are weak, the kind you would never notice between larger objects. But when a huge number of tiny contact points form at once, those faint tugs add up into a grip that feels surprisingly real. What makes this fascinating is how easily it can turn on and off. A tiny shift in distance or angle can break the connection, leaving nothing behind. No residue, no mess, no crusty film to scrape away. This kind of sticking helps explain why nanopowders clump, why tiny components can be hard to separate, and why engineers can build dry, gripping surfaces inspired by nature. It is closeness as a mechanism where attachment emerges from proximity alone. Electrostatic forces dominate motion at nanoscopic sizes. At your scale, a static shock is a brief surprise. Then life goes on. At nanoscopic sizes, electric charge becomes a constant presence, like weather. A nanoparticle is so light that even a small imbalance of charge can steer it, spin it, or pin it to a surface. Motion stops being about weight and momentum and becomes about attraction and repulsion. The quiet push and pull of electric fields. What makes this so powerful is that these forces act without contact. You do not need to touch the particle to influence it. You can guide it with a field, sort it, coax it into place, or make it assemble into patterns. This is one reason nanotechnology feels like choreography. The particles respond to invisible cues, moving as if they can sense instructions in the air. At this scale, electricity is not just a property, it is a steering wheel, and engineers learn to drive with it. Gravity becomes almost irrelevant at the nanoscale. Gravity shapes your whole life. It anchors your feet, pulls rain from the sky, and keeps oceans pressed to the earth. The shrink down to the nanoscale, and gravity becomes a whisper, drowned out by louder forces. A nanoparticle does not really fall the way a pebble falls. It gets buffeted, pulled sideways by charge, nudged by collisions, caught by surfaces that suddenly feel sticky. Up and down lose their authority. What makes this so mind-bending is the inversion of importance. The force that rules planets becomes nearly meaningless, while forces you rarely think about, like surface attraction, dominate every moment. This is why nanoscale engineering calls for an entirely new kind of intuition. At this scale, weight is no longer the central concern. Instead, design focuses on closeness, contact, and the subtle ways surfaces interact and forces are guided. It becomes a quiet reminder that the laws shaping our experience are not fixed. They depend on scale. As we move smaller and smaller, reality gently shifts its priorities, revealing a different set of rules beneath the familiar world. Quantum effects begin to influence real-world materials. Quantum behavior sounds like something that should stay locked inside equations, but the nanoscale lets it spill into the physical world. When structures become small enough, electrons stop acting like tidy particles moving along clear routes. They behave more like waves spreading out, interfering with themselves and responding sharply to boundaries. Energy becomes restricted to specific levels, like a staircase instead of a ramp. What makes this so captivating is that these effects are not philosophical. They are practical. They can change the color a nanoparticle emits, the way a thin layer conducts, all the sensitivity of a sensor. Engineers begin designing with quantum behavior in mind, not as a weird exception, but as the operating rule. The nanoscale becomes a frontier where the invisible rules of the microscopic world directly shape devices you can hold in your hand. It is as if the universe stops hiding its deeper mechanics and starts letting them affect everyday materials. Electrons can tunnel through barriers at nanoscopic distances. A wall is a wall until you get small enough that the idea of a wall becomes negotiable. At nanoscopic distances, electrons can sometimes appear on the other side of a barrier that they do not have the energy to cross in the normal sense. This is tunneling, and it feels like a magic trick until you accept that at this scale, nature runs on probability instead of certainty. The electron is not a tiny bead bouncing off a gate. It is a presence that can extend into forbidden regions, and sometimes it shows up beyond the boundary. What makes this so important is that tunneling becomes both a tool and a threat. It can be used to sense tiny distances and create extremely sensitive devices. Yet it can also cause unwanted leakage in small electronics as components shrink. Empty space stops behaving like emptiness. It becomes a medium where unlikely events happen often enough to matter, forcing engineers to design around the fact that barriers are not absolute at the nanoscale. Color can emerge from structure instead of chemistry. We are taught that color comes from substances, from pigments and dyes that soak up certain wavelengths and leave others behind. At the nanoscale, color can be built from shape alone. Tiny layers, ridges, and repeating patterns can split and recombine light so that specific wavelengths strengthen while others cancel out. The material might be nearly colorless, yet the structure makes it blaze with blue, flash green, or shimmer as you change your angle. What makes this so enchanting is that it does not fade the way pigment fades, because there is nothing to bleach. The color is locked into geometry. Change the spacing and the hue changes, like tuning an instrument by adjusting its size. This is one of the most beautiful lessons of nanotechnology, that appearance is not only about chemistry, it is about architecture. Light becomes something you can sculpt, and color becomes a property you can design into form. Changing size alone can alter melting points of materials. Melting points feel like carved into stone. Ice melts, metal softens, glass holds its shape. At the nanoscale, those certainties can shift. A tiny particle has an enormous fraction of its atoms on the surface, where bonds are less supported and more easily disturbed. That means it can start to soften and melt at temperatures that would leave the bulk material unchanged. What makes this so surprising
is that nothing about the chemical identity has been altered.
The same substance behaves differently simply because it has been made small. This matters in ways that are both thrilling and inconvenient. It can enable new manufacturing tricks where particles fuse at lower temperatures, but it can also create stability problems if a nanoscale component softens sooner than expected. The lesson is quiet but profound. Size is not just a measurement. At this scale, size is a control knob that can rewrite basic thermal behavior. Some nanomaterials become chemically reactive only at small sizes. A chunk of a material can seem calm and inert, almost bored by its surroundings. Reduce that same material to nanoscale dimensions, and it can wake up. With so many atoms exposed at the surface, there are more places where reactions can begin. Bonds are less sheltered, electrons are more available, and interactions with the environment become easier to trigger. What makes this so powerful is that reactivity can appear without changing the substance itself. Size alone can switch on a new chemical personality. This is why nanomaterials can act as remarkably efficient catalysts, accelerating reactions while using very little material. It is also why safety and careful design matter, because behavior that seems harmless in bulk can become active when miniaturized. The nanoscale teaches a repeating lesson. Matter is not only defined by what it is made of, it is defined by how much of it is exposed to the world. Nanotechnology allows paints to last longer using less material. Paint seems simple, a layer of color spread across a surface. But at the nanoscale, it becomes a carefully engineered system. Traditional paint relies on thickness for durability. The thicker the layer, the longer it lasts. Nanotechnology changes that by controlling how particles arrange themselves within the paint. Tiny structures can improve how pigment binds, how cracks are resisted, and how light and moisture interact with the surface. This means a thinner layer can perform like a much thicker one. What makes this so fascinating is efficiency. Less material is needed to achieve the same protection and color intensity. Paint can resist fading, peeling, and weathering for longer periods without being piled on. This reduces waste, weight, and cost while improving performance. The surface stops being just a coating and becomes an engineered shield. It is a quiet upgrade that touches buildings, vehicles, and everyday objects. All because structure at invisible scales can do more work than bulk ever could. Protective coatings can be only a few atoms thick. Protection usually suggests something heavy or layered, a barrier you can see and feel. At the nanoscale, protection can be almost unimaginably thin. Coatings only a few atoms thick can shield surfaces from corrosion, wear, and chemical attack. These layers work because atoms at the surface interact first with the environment. By carefully choosing what those atoms are and how they are arranged, engineers can change how a surface behaves without changing its appearance or weight. What makes this so remarkable is subtlety. The object underneath looks and feels the same, yet its lifespan can be dramatically extended. Metal resists rust, components slide with less friction, surfaces endure harsh conditions longer than expected. It feels almost like giving matter a second skin, one so thin it escapes notice. Protection becomes precise rather than bulky, designed at the level where damage begins rather than after it is spread. Glass can become scratch-resistant without becoming heavier. Glass feels solid and smooth,
yet scratches easily because its surface is vulnerable at small scales.
Nanotechnology addresses this weakness by reinforcing the outermost layers without thickening the glass itself. Nanoscale treatments can alter surface structure or add ultra-thin protective layers that deflect stress and resist abrasion. The result is glass that stays clear and smooth far longer, even under repeated contact. What makes this so compelling is that the improvement is invisible. The glass does not become thicker, heavier, or cloudier. It simply behaves better. This matters for screens, lenses, and architectural surfaces where clarity and durability must coexist. Instead of adding bulk to fight damage, engineers strengthen the surface where scratches begin. It is a lesson repeated throughout nanotechnology that solving problems at their origin is often more effective than piling on material afterward. Fire-resistant layers can be created from nanoscale ceramics. Fire resistance usually brings to mind thick barriers or heavy materials. Nanoscale ceramics offer a different approach. These materials can form thin layers that withstand extreme temperatures and slow the spread of heat. At small scales, ceramic structures can block heat flow, reflect energy, and resist chemical breakdown. What makes this so impressive is that protection does not require mass. A carefully engineered layer can shield what lies beneath long enough to prevent catastrophic failure. This is especially valuable in electronics, construction, and transportation, where weight and space are limited. Fire resistance becomes something you design into a surface rather than something you bolt on. The nanoscale approach turns ceramics from brittle bulk materials into flexible design tools, proving that even ancient substances can gain new abilities when arranged with modern precision. Nanocomposites can be both lightweight and impact-resistant. Strength often comes with weight, and lightness often comes with fragility. Nanocomposites challenge that trade-off. By combining materials at the nanoscale, engineers can create structures where tiny reinforcing elements stop cracks before they grow. When an impact occurs, stress is distributed across many small interfaces instead of concentrating in one weak spot. What makes this so fascinating is symmetry. Each component contributes a different strength, and together they are performed either alone. The result is materials that are light enough for efficiency, yet tough enough to absorb punishment. This is valuable in vehicles, protective gear, and structures where both strength and weight matter. Nanocomposites show that resilience does not have to mean heaviness. It can emerge from cooperation between materials arranged too finely to see. Some materials can heal tiny cracks through nanoscale motion. Cracks usually mean damage that only gets worse over time. At the nanoscale, materials can be designed to respond differently. Tiny components within the structure can shift, flow, or reconnect when a crack begins to form. This motion can seal the damage before it spreads, restoring strength without outside intervention. What makes this so astonishing is that repair becomes automatic. The material does not need to be replaced or fixed manually. It responds to stress the way living tissue responds to injury. This capability is especially valuable for structures that are hard to access or constantly under load. By stopping cracks early, materials last longer and fail less catastrophically. Self-healing at the nanoscale turns damage from a final verdict into a temporary condition, rewriting how longevity is engineered. Clothing can gain odor resistance through nanoscale treatments. Odor clings to fabric because bacteria settle into fibers and multiply. Nanotechnology tackles this problem by altering the surface environment where microbes try to live. Treatments at the nanoscale can prevent bacteria from attaching or disrupt their growth without sealing the fabric or affecting comfort. What makes this so appealing is subtlety. The clothing still breathes, it still feels normal against the skin, yet odor has a harder time taking hold.
This reduces the need for frequent washing, saving water and energy while extending garment life. It also avoids heavy chemical treatments that can wear out fabrics by addressing the problem where it starts, at the level of microscopic interaction. Nanotechnology makes cleanliness a built-in property rather than a constant battle. Nanotechnology can make fabrics repel stains without sealing pores. Stain resistance often comes at the cost of breathability. Seal the fabric too much, and air and moisture cannot pass through. Nanotechnology offers a smarter solution. By modifying surface texture at extremely small scales, fabrics can repel liquids while remaining porous to air.
Croplets bead up and roll away, unable to spread into the fibers. What makes this so impressive is balance. The fabric stays comfortable while gaining protection. This is possible because the treatment does not block pores. It changes how liquids interact with the surface. The result is clothing and textiles that stay cleaner longer without feeling artificial. It is another example of how nanotechnology works by persuasion rather than force, nudging behavior instead of building walls. Some nanomaterials can block ultraviolet light while staying transparent. Ultraviolet light can damage skin and materials, yet blocking it often darkens or clouds surfaces. Nanomaterials solve this by interacting selectively with light. Tiny particles can absorb or scatter ultraviolet wavelengths while allowing visible light to pass through. What makes this so elegant is precision. Protection does not require tint or opacity. Windows, coatings, and films can remain clear while quietly filtering harmful radiation. This improves comfort, safety, and durability without altering appearance. The nanoscale approach turns light control into a fine-tuned process rather than a blunt filter. It demonstrates how transparency and protection can coexist when structure is designed carefully enough. Sunscreen works because of carefully engineered nanoparticles. Sunscreen feels like a simple lotion, but its effectiveness depends on nanoscale engineering. Tiny particles within it interact with ultraviolet light, absorbing or scattering it before it can damage skin. Their size is carefully chosen so they remain transparent to visible light, avoiding the chalky appearance older formulations had. What makes this so important is control. The particles must be small enough to spread evenly and block radiation, yet stable enough to stay where they are applied. This balance allows sunscreen to protect without interfering with comfort or appearance. It is a familiar example of nanotechnology quietly at work in daily life. A reminder that some of the most important applications of the nanoscale are the ones people use without ever noticing the science behind them. Nanotechnology now allows sensors small enough to exist inside living cells. A cell is not an empty space, but a crowded, dynamic world filled with shifting structures, flowing chemistry, and constant motion. For most of human history, this inner realm could only be studied from the outside, with scientists piecing together its hidden activity by observing the results it produced. Nanotechnology changes that by allowing sensors so small they can exist inside a cell without overwhelming it. These sensors can slip into the cellular interior and quietly report on conditions like acidity, chemical concentration, or energy use. What makes this so extraordinary is scale. The sensor must be small enough not to disrupt delicate processes, yet robust enough to survive in a constantly shifting environment. Once inside, it experiences a world of motion and noise, far removed from laboratory calm. The promise is profound. Instead of guessing how cells behave, scientists can observe events as they unfold, moment by moment. This opens a new way of understanding life, not as a static diagram, but as a dynamic system viewed from within. The cell becomes less of a black box and more of a landscape that can finally be explored directly. Certain nanosensors change color in the presence of toxins. Imagine a material that quietly watches its surroundings and then signals danger by changing color. Certain nanosensors do exactly that. They are designed so that specific chemicals trigger subtle changes in structure or electronic behavior, which then alter how the sensor interacts with light. A toxin enters the environment, binds to the sensor, and the color shifts. What makes this so powerful is immediacy. There is no need for complex equipment or delayed analysis. The signal is visual, direct, and often reversible. These sensors can be tuned to respond only to particular substances, ignoring harmless background chemicals. At the nanoscale, even a small interaction can produce a visible effect. This allows detection of threats at extremely low concentrations, long before they become dangerous. The fascination lies in how information becomes embodied. Color is no longer decorative, it is communicative. A material itself becomes a warning system, quietly translating invisible chemistry into something the human eye can understand. Nanoparticles can be used to trace how cells communicate. Cells are constantly talking to one another, sending chemical messages that coordinate growth, repair, and defense. These messages are fleeting and difficult to follow. Nanoparticles offer a way to trace this hidden conversation. By attaching to specific molecules or pathways, nanoparticles can act like tiny trackers, moving along with signals as they travel from one cell to another. Scientists can then observe where messages go, how long they last, and how they change along the way. What makes this so compelling is that it reveals communication as a dynamic network rather than a simple exchange. Messages branch, overlap, and fade. Some are amplified while others are ignored. Tracking this flow helps explain how complex behaviors emerge from simple signals. It also sheds light on what happens when communication breaks down. Disease can be seen not just as damaged cells, but as misdirected conversations. Nanoparticles allow scientists to watch these exchanges unfold in real time, revealing a hidden social life at the cellular level. Researchers can watch individual molecules move in real time. For a long time, molecules were statistical abstractions known through averages and indirect effects. Nanotechnology has changed that perspective by allowing scientists to observe single molecules as they move, bind, and change. Specialized nanoscale tools can track individual molecules as they drift through liquids, attached to surfaces, or interact with larger structures. What makes this so astonishing is intimacy. Instead of seeing a blurred crowd, researchers can watch one molecule take its own unpredictable path. They can see pauses, hesitations, and sudden changes that disappear in average data. This reveals that molecular behavior is often messier and richer than simplified models suggest. Life at this scale is full of variability. Watching molecules one by one transforms understanding from static rules to living processes. Chemistry and biology become stories of motion and chance, unfolding step by step rather than all at once. Nanotechnology allows imaging beyond the limits of normal microscopes. Traditional microscopes are constrained by the nature of light itself, which limits how closely objects can be distinguished. Nanotechnology finds ways around this barrier by using clever interactions between light and matter.
Nanoscale probes, fluorescent markers, and engineered surfaces can reveal details far smaller than classical limits would allow. Instead of relying solely on lenses, these techniques extract information from how light behaves near tiny structures. What makes this so remarkable is that it expands vision without changing eyesight. The same light can reveal more simply because it is guided differently. This has transformed fields like biology and material science, where previously invisible details suddenly become clear. Structures once inferred can now be seen. Processes once guessed can be observed. The world grows more detailed, not because it changed, but because perception learned a new trick. Some nanoscale probes can measure forces inside living cells. Inside a cell, forces are constantly at work. Proteins pull, membranes stretch, and molecular motors generate motion. Measuring these forces was once nearly impossible. Nanoscale probes make it possible by responding to tiny mechanical changes within the cell. These probes can bend, shift, or change signal when they experience force, allowing scientists to estimate stresses that are far too small for conventional instruments. What makes this so fascinating is that it reveals the cell as a mechanical system, as well as a chemical one. Life is not just reactions and signals, it is tension, pressure, and motion. By measuring these forces, researchers gain insight into how cells move, divide, and respond to their environment. The cell becomes a place where physics and biology intertwine, and nanoscale tools act as translators between the two. Nano devices can monitor chemical changes second by second. Chemical environments are rarely static. They shift, pulse, and fluctuate over time. Nano devices can sit within these environments and monitor changes as they happen, second by second. Because they are so small, they respond quickly and locally, detecting changes that would be averaged away in larger measurements. What makes this so powerful is timing. Knowing not just what changes, but when it changes, can reveal cause and effect. A chemical spike followed by a response tells a story that a single snapshot cannot. This is crucial in living systems, where timing often determines outcome. By capturing chemical rhythms in real time, nano devices allow scientists to see processes as sequences rather than static states. Chemistry becomes something that unfolds, not something that merely exists. Tiny nanoscale antennas can interact with light directly. Antennas are usually associated with radio waves and large structures. At the nanoscale, antennas can be built to interact directly with light. These tiny structures resonate with specific wavelengths, concentrating light into extremely small regions. What makes this so striking is control. Light can be guided, intensified, or redirected at scales far smaller than its wavelength. This enables sensitive detectors, enhanced imaging, and new ways to manipulate optical signals. A nanoscale antenna can act like a funnel for light, pulling energy into places where it can be used efficiently. This challenges intuition about how light behaves and where it can go. The boundary between optics and electronics begins to blur as light is treated not just as illumination, but as something that can be engineered with precision. Nanotechnology can translate biological signals into electronic ones. Biology communicates through chemistry and motion, while electronics communicate through charge and current. Nanotechnology creates a bridge between these languages. Nanoscale interfaces can respond to biological signals and convert them into electronic outputs. A change in a molecule, a shift in ion concentration, or a mechanical movement can become an electrical signal that devices can read. What makes this so transformative is connection. Living systems can be monitored and interacted with directly, without forcing them into artificial conditions. This opens possibilities for advanced diagnostics, responsive implants, and deeper understanding of how biological information flows. The body becomes less opaque to technology, and technology becomes more sensitive to the body. Communication begins to run both ways, mediated by structures small enough to speak both languages fluently. Researchers are building nanoscale tools that operate inside the body.
The human body is an environment of constant motion, chemical complexity, and delicate balance. Nanoscale tools are being designed to function within this environment without disrupting it. These tools can navigate fluids, respond to signals, and perform specific tasks such as sensing, delivery, or intervention. What makes this so extraordinary is subtlety. Instead of forcing large instruments into the body, function is miniaturized to match the scale of biological processes. The tools move where the action is, rather than dragging the body to the tool. This marks a quiet shift in how medicine and research are envisioned. Care becomes local and precise, rather than broad and invasive. The body is no longer treated as something to overpower, but as a place where technology can coexist, gently working alongside natural processes instead of disrupting them. In the same way, nanotechnology allows energy devices to hold greater power within smaller spaces, revealing how refinement, rather than force, can lead to remarkable capability. Energy storage used to be a game of scale. If you wanted more power, you made the device bigger, heavier, and thicker, like adding more logs to a fire. Nanotechnology changes that by turning energy devices into landscapes rather than lumps of material. At tiny scales, you can build enormous surface area into a small volume, like folding a vast sheet into a compact space. That matters because many energy processes happen at surfaces where reactions occur and charge is exchanged. When a battery or capacitor gains more active surface inside the same footprint, it can hold more energy and deliver it faster without simply becoming a brick. What makes this so captivating is that it feels like a cheat code. Because you are not adding more substance, you are adding more opportunity, more places for ions to land, more pathways for electrons to travel, more contact points where chemistry can do its work. This is how energy devices can become smaller while becoming more capable. The power is not hidden in bulk. It is hidden in architecture, in the way matter is arranged, so that every tiny corner participates instead of sitting idle. Batteries rely on nanoscale chemistry to store and release energy. A battery can look like a simple object, but inside, it is a controlled chemical drama unfolding on tiny surfaces. When a battery charges and discharges, ions move, settle, and depart, shuttling between regions like travelers moving between two cities. The most important action happens where the ions meet the electrode surfaces, and those surfaces are full of nanoscale features. Even in batteries you use every day, performance depends on thin layers, tiny particles, and microscopic pathways that guide motion. What makes this so fascinating is that energy is not stored as a static stash. It is stored as potential, as a carefully arranged imbalance that chemistry wants to correct. The battery works by letting that correction happen slowly and usefully, rather than all at once. At the nanoscale, small changes in texture, coating, and structure can decide whether ions move smoothly or get stuck, whether heat builds up or escapes, whether the battery ages quickly or lasts. A battery is less like a box of power and more like a living system, one that depends on the quiet behavior of atoms and ions repeating the same journey again and again. Nano-ruptured electrodes can charge faster without overheating. Fast charging sounds simple. Pour energy in quickly and be done. The problem is that speed creates strain. Ions rush towards surfaces. Reactions intensify, and heat can spike in the wrong places. Nano-ruptured electrodes offer a way to ease that strain by redesigning the terrain where charging happens. Instead of forcing ions to crowd into limited entry points, nanocowl structures provide many routes, many landing sites, and many short paths. It is like widening a highway into a network of calm streets, so traffic spreads out rather than piling into a single bottleneck. What makes this so compelling is that it tackles speed and safety at once. When ions can move efficiently, less energy is wasted as heat. When reactions occur more evenly, hotspots are less likely to form. Nano-ruptured surfaces also help by shortening diffusion distances, so ions do not have to push through long, resistive routes. The result is a battery that can accept energy rapidly while staying more stable. It feels almost like the battery has learned better breathing. Instead of gasping under a sudden rush, it can take in power smoothly, distributing the chemical work across a carefully engineered internal landscape. Solar cells use nanotechnology to capture more sunlight. Sunlight arrives as a flood of photons, and a solar cell is a net trying to catch them before they slip away. Nanotechnology helps tighten that net. By adding nanoscale textures and layers, engineers can reduce reflection, redirect incoming light, and keep photons bouncing inside the cell longer. The longer light stays inside, the greater the chance it will be absorbed and converted into usable energy. Some nanoruptures act like tiny traps, guiding light into regions where it is most effective. Others tune how different wavelengths behave, coaxing more of the solar spectrum into doing useful work. What makes this so fascinating is that the improvement can come from structure rather than more material. You are not simply making the cell thicker, you are making it smarter. A surface that looks smooth to your eyes can be a carefully patented world to a photon, steering it, slowing it, and increasing the odds of capture. It is a quiet form of engineering, one that doesn't force sunlight into obedience, but gently guides it through thoughtful geometry, allowing light to linger just long enough to be transformed. In this way, the cell becomes a welcoming space where energy is invited rather than compelled. Some nanomaterials extend this elegance even further, converting heat directly into electricity. Heat is usually treated as a leftover, the energy that slips away after work is done. Yet at this scale, even what once seemed like waste can be gathered and given new purpose. Nanomaterials invite a more ambitious idea, that heat can be harvested as a source instead of tolerated as a loss. Certain materials can generate electrical voltage when there is a temperature difference across them, turning a gradient of warmth into moving charge. At small scales, engineers can tune these materials so that electrons flow efficiently while heat flow is hindered, which is exactly what you want for conversion. What makes this so exciting is the image of hidden power everywhere. the warmth from a device, the heat leaking from industrial systems, even temperature differences in the environment can become potential electricity. Nanoruptures can scatter the vibrations that carry heat while letting electrons travel more freely, like building a hallway that blocks noise but allows people to pass. This is difficult because nature often ties electrical and thermal behavior together. Nanotechnology gives new levers to separate them. It suggests a future where waste heat is not merely managed but quietly collected, where lost warmth becomes an opportunity rather than a problem. Nanotechnology can reduce energy loss at material boundaries. Energy loss often happens at the seams, where one material meets another. Boundaries can act like rough borders, scattering electrons, trapping charges, and reflecting vibrations that carry heat. At large scales, these losses can be smoothed over with bulk design. At the nanoscale, boundaries can dominate the entire behavior of a device. Nanotechnology helps by engineering interfaces to be more cooperative. Layers can be tailored to match structures, reduce defects, and provide smoother pathways for electrons and ions. Think of it as building a bridge that aligns perfectly with both shores, instead of forcing travelers to stumble over broken steps. What makes this so compelling is how invisible the improvement can be. A device may look the same from the outside, yet inside, energy moves with less friction, fewer interruptions, and less waste. By controlling boundaries, engineers can squeeze more useful work out of the same input. It is a reminder that efficiency is often not about discovering new energy, but about losing less of what you already have by making the handoffs between materials gentler and more precise. Fuel cells depend on nanoscale catalysts to function efficiently. A fuel cell is like a quiet engine that turns chemical potential directly into electricity, but it depends on reactions that need help to happen quickly and cleanly. That help comes from catalysts, materials that speed reactions without being consumed. At the nanoscale, catalysts become dramatically more effective because so many atoms are exposed at the surface, ready to interact. The reaction does not have to search for a rare active site. It finds one everywhere. What makes this so fascinating is the balance fuel cells demand. Reactions must proceed fast enough to deliver power, yet controlled enough to avoid waste and unwanted byproducts. Nanoscale catalysts provide that control by offering abundant reaction sites and tunable surfaces. Engineers can tweak shape, size, and surface chemistry to favor the desired pathways, almost like guiding a river into a channel rather than letting it spread into a swamp. This is why tiny amounts of catalytic material can have outsized effects. A fuel cell's performance can hinge on features too small to see, yet those features decide whether energy flows smoothly or stalls, whether efficiency rises or sinks, whether the device feels powerful or sluggish. Energy efficiency improves dramatically when reactions occur at the nanoscale. Many energy technologies are limited not by the laws of physics, but by practical inefficiencies. Reactions occur slowly. Intermediates get stuck and energy leaks away as heat. At the nanoscale, reactions can become faster and cleaner because distances are shorter and surfaces are more active. Molecules do not have to wander far to find a reaction site. Charges do not have to travel through long, resistive paths. What makes this so compelling is that efficiency becomes a matter of design. By shaping catalysts, electrodes, and interfaces at tiny scales, engineers can guide reactions toward productive outcomes and away from wasted detours. It is like reorganizing a kitchen so every tool is within reach, reducing fumbling and delay. Small improvements compound.
A slight increase in reaction speed, a slight reduction in loss, a slight improvement in transport can add up to major gains in overall performance. The nanoscale is where you can refine these details with precision, making energy systems feel less like blunt machines and more like carefully tuned instruments where less effort is wasted and more becomes useful work. Nanotechnology helps stabilize materials exposed to extreme temperatures. Extreme heat can make materials expand, crack, oxidize, or lose their structure. In harsh environments, the difference between stable and failing can come down to tiny defects that grow over time. Nanotechnology helps by reinforcing materials at the level where failure begins. Nanoscale coatings can block oxygen, slow corrosion, and prevent damaging reactions at the surface. Nano-ruptured composites can distribute stress so that cracks struggle to gain momentum. What makes this so fascinating is that stability often comes from controlling small events before they become large disasters. A tiny crack that would race through a bulk material can be stopped by nanoscale barriers that interrupt its path, forcing it to slow, split, or die out. In extreme temperature settings, even heat flow matters, and nanoscale design can guide thermal behavior to avoid dangerous hotspots. This approach turns survival into an engineered property, not a lucky accident. It allows materials to endure places they otherwise could not, expanding the environments where technology can operate safely. Because the smallest structures quietly absorb the harshest conditions, future energy systems may depend on nanoscale control of matter. Energy is not just about generating power. It is about storing it, moving it, converting it, and wasting as little as possible along the way. The most stubborn limits often appear in the details. The tiny bottlenecks where ions slow down, where electrons scatter, where heat leaks out, where reactions hesitate. Nanotechnology offers a new way forward by making those details adjustable when you can shape surfaces, interfaces, and pathways at tiny scales. You can change the behavior of the whole system. What makes this so exciting is the sense of leverage. Small structures influence large outcomes. A thin layer can extend a battery's life. A nanoscale catalyst can make a reaction practical. A pattern surface can capture more sunlight. This suggests that the next leap in energy may not come from one grand invention, but from countless precise refinements, each one nudging losses downward and performance upward. The future may be built from quiet improvements that accumulate into transformation. When you can control matter at the nanoscale, energy stops being only a resource. It becomes a craft, shaped by design, guided by structure, and improved by precision. Nanotechnology raises questions about how materials interact with living systems. When materials become small enough to mingle with cells and tissues, the relationship between object and organism changes completely. A surface is no longer just a boundary. It becomes an active participant in biological processes. Nanomaterials can touch proteins, slip between membranes, and encounter immune defenses in ways larger materials never could. What makes this so profound is that biology responds not only to what something is made of, but to how it feels at very small scales. Shape, size, texture, and charge can all influence how living systems react. A nanoparticle might be welcomed, ignored, or aggressively attacked depending on details that are invisible without powerful tools. This raises deep questions about compatibility. A material that seems harmless in bulk may behave very differently when it operates at cellular dimensions. Nanotechnology forces scientists to think beyond chemistry alone and consider interaction as a dynamic process. Materials are no longer passive. They engage with biology, triggering responses that can cascade through tissues and systems. Understanding these interactions becomes essential because once materials enter living environments, they become part of a conversation that evolution has been refining for billions of years.
Tiny particles can behave very differently inside the human body. The human body is not a static container. It is a flowing, reactive environment filled with moving fluids, changing chemistry, and vigilant defenses. When tiny particles enter this environment, their journey can be surprising. A nanoparticle might circulate for hours, become trapped in a specific organ, or be cleared almost immediately, depending on its size and surface features. What makes this so fascinating is unpredictability. The same particle can behave one way in a test tube and another way entirely inside a living system. Proteins may coat it, altering how cells perceive it. Immune cells may treat it as a threat or ignore it completely. Barriers that block larger objects may be porous to something smaller. This means that understanding behavior inside the body requires more than knowing composition. It requires understanding motion, interaction, and response over time. Nanotechnology reveals the body as a selective landscape, where small differences in scale can determine whether a particle travels freely, finds a target, or disappears without a trace. Size alone can determine whether a material is toxic or safe. Toxicity is often thought of as a property of chemistry. Some substances are dangerous, others are benign. At the nanoscale, size itself can become a deciding factor. A material that is safe in bulk form may interact very differently with cells when broken down into tiny particles. Smaller sizes can allow deeper penetration into tissues, different uptake by cells, and new chemical reactivity at exposed surfaces. What makes this so striking is that danger does not always come from what something is, but from how it is presented to the body. A particle small enough to enter a cell may interfere with processes that a larger version never could. This challenges traditional ideas of safety testing, which often assume that composition tells the whole story. Nanotechnology demands a more nuanced view. It shows that scale can unlock behaviors that were never relevant before. Safety becomes a question of context, not just content, shaped by the intimate interactions that occur when matter becomes small enough to cross biological thresholds. Nanotechnology forces scientists to rethink how regulation works. Regulation has long relied on clear categories. A substance is approved or restricted based on known properties and uses. Nanotechnology blurs these boundaries. The same material can behave differently depending on size, shape, and surface treatment. What makes this so challenging is that traditional labels no longer capture risk accurately. A nanoparticle may not fit neatly into existing classifications, even though its behavior demands careful oversight. Regulators must consider not just what a material is, but how it behaves in specific contexts. This requires new testing methods, new definitions, and new ways of thinking about exposure and impact. Nanotechnology moves faster than regulation was designed to handle, creating a gap between innovation and oversight. Filling that gap requires flexibility and deep scientific understanding. It also requires acknowledging uncertainty. Regulation becomes less about rigid rules and more about flexible frameworks that can evolve as understanding deepens. The aim is not to hinder progress, but to guide it with care in a world where scale reshapes every assumption. When materials become invisible to the senses, measuring exposure grows more complex. Exposure is usually something you can see, smell, or easily detect. But at this level, it asks for new ways of noticing and understanding. Nanomaterials challenge that assumption. They can be present in air, water, or surfaces without leaving obvious traces. Measuring how much exposure occurs becomes a complex problem of detection and interpretation. Instruments must distinguish nanoparticles from background noise and natural particles that look similar. What makes this so difficult is that invisibility does not mean insignificance. Tiny amounts can still matter if interactions occur at sensitive biological sites. This forces scientists to develop new tools capable of counting, tracking, and characterizing particles that are smaller than traditional detection minutes. It also changes how exposure is understood. Duration, distribution, and transformation over time all become important. Nanotechnology highlights acquired truth. What you cannot see can still shape outcomes profoundly. Measuring exposure becomes an exercise in precision, patience, and humility. Acknowledging that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence when scale hides effects so effectively. Environmental impacts depend strongly on nanoscale behavior. When materials enter the environment at the nanoscale, they do not simply disperse like larger debris. They interact with soil, water, and living organisms in ways that depend on tiny details. A nanoparticle may clump, dissolve, settle, or travel depending on its surface chemistry and surroundings. What makes this so fascinating is complexity. Environmental impact is no longer just about quantity, it is about behavior. Small changes in size or coating can determine whether particles sink into sediment or remain suspended, whether they are taken up by organisms or pass through ecosystems unnoticed. Nanotechnology reveals the environment as a dynamic filter, sorting particles based on subtle traits. Predicting impact requires understanding physics, chemistry, and biology together. It is a reminder that nature responds to materials not as static objects, but as participants in ongoing processes at small scales. Behavior determines consequence. Nanoparticles can travel farther than expected in air and water. Intuition suggests that heavier objects fall quickly and stay close to their source. Nanoparticles defy that expectation. Their small size allows them to remain suspended in air or water for long periods, carried by currents that larger particles cannot follow. What makes this so important is reach. A particle released in one place can end up far away, crossing boundaries that were once assumed to provide protection. In air, nanoparticles can follow subtle flows and turbulence, drifting through indoor and outdoor spaces. In water, they can remain mobile, interacting with organisms and surfaces along the way. This extended travel complicates containment and cleanup. It also means that impact may occur far from origin. Nanotechnology forces a shift in thinking from local effects to distributed ones. Movement becomes a key factor in risk and responsibility, reminding scientists that small scale does not mean small influence. Long-term effects are still being carefully studied. Nanotechnology is relatively young compared to the timescales of environmental and biological change. Many effects unfold slowly, emerging only after long exposure or accumulation. What makes this challenging is patience. Short-term studies cannot always reveal subtle impacts that take years to appear.
Researchers must design experiments that look beyond immediate outcomes, tracking behavior and interaction over extended periods. This work requires caution and persistence because early conclusions can be misleading. The absence of obvious harm does not guarantee long-term safety. Nanotechnology highlights the importance of time as a factor in understanding risk. Effects may be delayed, indirect, or cumulative.
Studying them demands careful observation and willingness to revise assumptions. It is a reminder that responsibility extends beyond invention to long-term stewardship of how materials behave after they leave the laboratory. Responsible design is essential when working at such small scales. Power grows with precision. When materials can interact directly with cells, ecosystems, and fundamental processes, design choices carry weight. Responsible design means anticipating how materials might behave outside their intended use. It involves considering not just performance, but interaction, persistence, and unintended consequences. What makes this so vital is that nanoscale effects can be subtle yet widespread. A small oversight can ripple outward. Responsible design encourages building safeguards into materials themselves, choosing structures that minimize harm and maximize benefit. It also involves transparency and collaboration across disciplines. Engineers, biologists, and environmental scientists must work together because no single perspective captures the whole picture. Nanotechnology teaches that control brings obligation. The ability to shape matter so precisely demands equal care in deciding how and why it is shaped. Understanding risk requires understanding physics at the nanoscale. Risk at small scales does not always follow familiar patterns. Forces that are negligible at larger sizes can dominate behavior. Motion becomes random. Surfaces become powerful. Quantum effects creep into practical outcomes. Understanding risk therefore requires understanding how physics changes with scale. What makes this so important is that intuition built on everyday experience can fail completely. Safety assessments must account for behaviors that only appear when matter is small enough to feel them. This requires new models, new measurements, and new mental frameworks. Nanotechnology forces risk assessment to become more scientific and less assumption-driven. It demands respect for the fact that nature plays by different rules when size shrinks. Only by understanding those rules can scientists predict outcomes and design systems that are not just effective, but safe. Nanotechnology allows humans to engineer matter with unprecedented precision. For most of history, shaping matter meant cutting, melting, grinding, or casting. All blunt methods that work well only when details are large. Nanotechnology introduces a different relationship with material. Instead of forcing matter into shape, engineers can guide it, persuading atoms and molecules to assemble in specific ways. This level of precision allows properties to be designed rather than discovered. Strength, flexibility, conductivity, and reactivity can all be tuned by adjusting structure at extremely small scales. What makes this so profound is control. Instead of accepting the limitations of natural materials, humans can now design behavior into matter itself. A surface can be made slippery or sticky. A particle can be made visible or invisible to the immune system. A material can be instructed to respond only under certain conditions. Precision becomes a language allowing engineers to speak directly to the rules that govern matter. This is not just refinement. It is a shift from shaping objects to shaping interactions where the smallest details carry the greatest authority. The smallest design choices can produce the biggest effects.
At everyday scales, small flaws are often forgiven. A tiny scratch rarely changes how an object works. At the nanoscale, small choices can ripple outward dramatically. A slight change in size, a different surface pattern, or a subtle shift in spacing can completely alter behavior.
A particle might suddenly conduct electricity, absorb light, or trigger a biological response that was absent before. What makes this so striking is sensitivity systems become responsive to details that would normally be ignored. This forces designers to think carefully about every decision because nothing is truly minor. The smallest features can control outcomes far larger than themselves. This sensitivity also creates opportunity. By adjusting tiny parameters, engineers can fine-tune performance without adding bulk or complexity. It is a reminder that leverage increases as scale shrinks. When you work close to the fundamental rules of matter, small nudges can produce outsized consequences. Entire industries are being reshaped by nanoscale materials. Industries often evolve slowly, constrained by established materials and manufacturing methods. Nanotechnology disrupts that base by introducing materials that behave in entirely new ways. Electronics becomes smaller and more powerful. Medicine becomes more targeted. Energy systems become more efficient. What makes this transformation so far-reaching is that nanoscale materials do not just improve existing products, they enable products that were previously impossible. Lighter structures, smarter coatings, adaptive surfaces, and responsive devices all emerge from control at small scales. Industries built around bulk materials must rethink design, production, and performance. This creates both challenge and opportunity. Companies that adapt gain access to new capabilities. Those that resist risk falling behind. Nanotechnology acts like a quiet reshaper, not always visible to consumers, but deeply influential in how products are conceived and built. Change happens from the inside out, driven by details too small to see, but too powerful to ignore. Medicine may shift from treatment to targeted intervention. Traditional medicine often works broadly, affecting healthy and unhealthy tissue alike. Nanotechnology opens the door to a more precise approach. Treatments can be designed to travel to specific locations, respond to local conditions, and act only when needed. What makes this so transformative is selectivity. Instead of flooding the body with a drug, intervention can be focused where it matters most. This reduces side effects and increases effectiveness. Nanotechnology allows medicine to behave less like a blunt tool and more like a guided response. Sensors can detect early signs of disease. Carriers can deliver therapy directly to affected cells. Systems can activate only under specific biological signals. This represents a shift in philosophy. Medicine becomes proactive and precise rather than reactive and broad. The body is no longer treated as a uniform space, but as a landscape where location and timing matter deeply. Materials once thought impossible are now being tested in labs. For decades, some material properties existed only as theoretical ideas. They violated assumptions about strength, weight, or behavior. Nanotechnology has turned many of those ideas into experiments. By arranging matter at very small scales, scientists can create materials that bend light unusually, resist damage unexpectedly, or combine properties once considered incompatible. What makes this so captivating is the sense of possibility it opens. The limits of material performance are no longer set by chemistry alone. structure becomes an equal partner in shaping behavior. This shift allows laboratories to explore combinations and properties that nature never formed on its own. Some of these materials remain experimental, while others are slowly and steadily finding their way into real-world use, carrying quiet potential into the future. Each success expands the boundary of what engineers believe can be built. Impossibility becomes provisional, waiting to be challenged by better understanding and finer control. Nanotechnology blurs the line between chemistry and engineering. Chemistry traditionally focuses on reactions and composition. Engineering focuses on structure and function. At the nanoscale, these distinctions fade. A change in structure can alter chemical behavior. A chemical modification can redefine mechanical performance. What makes this so fascinating is integration. Designing a nanomaterial often requires thinking like both a chemist and an engineer at the same time. Molecules are not just substances. They are components. Structures are not just shapes. They are active participants in reactions. This blending creates a new way of working, where disciplines overlap rather than stand apart. Solutions emerge from collaboration rather than specialization. Nanotechnology encourages a holistic view of matter, where behavior is shaped by both what something is and how it is arranged. The nanoscale is where physics, chemistry, and biology meet. At large scales, physics, chemistry, and biology often feel separate. At the nanoscale, they converge. Forces from physics shape molecular interactions. Chemical reactions drive biological processes. Structures determine function. What makes this convergence so powerful is that it reveals unity beneath apparent complexity. Life itself operates at these small scales, relying on physical laws and chemical reactions arranged into functional systems. Nanotechnology operates in the same space, allowing scientists to study and influence processes where disciplines naturally overlap. This creates a deeper understanding of how systems work as wholes rather than as isolated parts. The nanoscale becomes a meeting place where the rules of matter, life, and energy intersect and inform one another. Mastering nanotechnology means mastering control over matter itself. Control at large scales is coarse. You move objects, shape surfaces, and guide flows. At the nanoscale, control becomes intimate. You influence how atoms connect, how electrons move, and how molecules respond. What makes this so profound is that it touches the foundations of material behavior. Mastery does not mean domination. It means understanding rules deeply enough to work with them rather than against them. This level of control allows design to reach into places once governed only by chance or nature. It also carries responsibility, because altering fundamental interactions can have wide consequences. Mastering nanotechnology is not just a technical achievement. It is a statement about how closely humans can engage with the fabric of reality. The smallest tools humans have ever built may change the largest systems. Nanotechnology tools are almost unimaginably small, yet their impact can extend far beyond their size. A tiny sensor can influence medical decisions. A nanoscale catalyst can reshape energy production. A thin coating can extend the life of massive structures. What makes this so striking is scale mismatch. Small interventions can trigger large outcomes. This challenges assumptions about where change originates. Transformation does not always begin with grand machines or massive projects. It can begin with precise adjustments made quietly at the smallest levels. Nanotechnology demonstrates that leverage grows as scale shrinks. When tools operate where fundamental processes occur, their influence spreads outward, shaping systems that appear far larger and more complex. Nanotechnology reveals that reality behaves very differently when you look closely enough. At everyday scales, the world feels solid, predictable, and continuous. Nanotechnology peels back that familiarity and reveals a different landscape. Motion becomes random. Surfaces dominate behavior. Forces shift in importance. Probability replaces certainty. What makes this revelation so humbling is that the familiar world is only one version of reality shaped by scale. When you look closely enough, new rules emerge. Nanotechnology does not just create new tools, it changes perspective. It shows that understanding deepens as observation sharpens. The closer we look, the stranger and more nuanced reality becomes. This insight extends beyond technology. It reminds us that knowledge is always incomplete, and that discovery often lies not in looking farther, but in looking closer. Nanoparticles can be engineered to change shape when exposed to specific chemicals. Most materials hold their shape passively, changing only when pushed, heated, or broken. At the nanoscale, shape can become responsive. Certain nanoparticles are designed so their internal structure rearranges when they encounter a specific chemical environment. A molecule binds, a bond shifts. The particle bends, opens, twists, or collapses. What makes this so astonishing is intentional behavior. The shape change is not damage, it is the task. These particles can remain stable while traveling, then transform only when they reach the right chemical signal. That signal might exist only inside a diseased tissue, a polluted environment, or a specific cellular compartment. Shape becomes a form of information processing. The particle reads its surroundings and responds accordingly. This allows nanotechnology to act with restraint, staying inert until the correct conditions appear. It is a step toward materials that behave less like objects and more like agents, quietly waiting, then acting at precisely the right moment. Some nanomaterials only become active when they encounter a particular temperature. Temperature is usually something materials endure rather than interpret. At the nanoscale, temperature can become a trigger. Certain nanomaterials are designed to remain inactive until they cross a specific thermal threshold. Below that point, nothing happens. Above it, the material changes behavior, releasing a substance, altering conductivity, or activating a response. What makes this so powerful is precision. The temperature threshold can be tuned so activation happens only in very specific contexts. A fevered tissue, a heated device component, a localized energy input. This allows function to be gated by warmth itself, turning temperature into a control signal rather than a background condition. It also adds a layer of safety. A material can remain dormant during transport and storage, then become active only where heat provides confirmation of location or state. Temperature becomes a password. Only when it is correct does the system respond. Nanotechnology allows surfaces to selectively attract one substance while repelling another. Most surfaces are indiscriminate. Whatever touches them sticks or slides based largely on chance. Nanotechnology allows surfaces to develop preferences. By carefully designing texture and chemistry at extremely small scales, a surface can be made welcoming to one substance while hostile to another. Water may bead up and roll away, while oil spreads smoothly. One type of protein may bind tightly, while others fail to attach.
What makes this so remarkable is specificity. The surface does not block everything, it chooses. This is possible because interactions at the nanoscale depend on matching shape, charge, and molecular pattern. The surface becomes a filter that works through attraction rather than exclusion. This has enormous implications for filtration, sensing, and separation. Instead of brute barriers, engineers create selective landscapes.
The surface quietly decides what belongs and what does not, turning passive materials into discriminating interfaces. Certain nanoparticles can cross the blood-brain barrier, while most drugs cannot. The brain is protected by one of the most selective barriers in the body, designed to keep out harmful substances while allowing essential nutrients through. This barrier blocks many drugs, making treatment of neurological conditions extremely difficult. Some nanoparticles, however, can pass through. Their size, shape, and surface chemistry allow them to exploit natural transport pathways or slip between tightly regulated defenses. What makes this so extraordinary is access. The brain is no longer completely isolated from targeted intervention. Nanoparticles can be designed to carry drugs, imaging agents, or diagnostic tools across a barrier that once seemed impenetrable. This possibility comes with responsibility, because access must be carefully controlled. It represents a profound shift. The brain becomes reachable not by force, but by mimicry and precision, using nanoscale design to speak the same language as the barrier itself. Nano-ruptured materials can slow down light and temporarily trap it. Light usually feels unstoppable, racing through space at unimaginable speed. Nano-ruptured materials can change that experience. By arranging matter in precise, repeating patterns, engineers can create environments where light slows down, circulates, or becomes temporarily confined. Photons bounce, interfere, and linger instead of passing straight through. What makes this so fascinating is control over time. Slowing light allows more interaction, more absorption, and more opportunity to extract information or energy. This capability is crucial for optical computing, sensing, and communication technologies. It also reshapes how light and matter relate. Light is no longer just illumination. It becomes something that can be stored briefly, guided deliberately, and released on command. Speed, once assumed to be fixed, becomes adjustable through structure alone. Some nanoscale devices use chemical reactions instead of electricity to function. Most devices rely on electric current to operate. At the nanoscale, chemistry itself can become the engine. Certain nano devices are powered by chemical reactions that change shape, generate motion, or trigger responses without traditional circuitry. What makes this so compelling is compatibility with biological environments. Living systems already run on chemistry, not wires. Chemical-powered nano devices can operate where electricity is impractical or disruptive. They can respond to local chemical conditions and use available molecules as fuel. This approach blurs the line between machine and chemistry. Function emerges from reaction rather than voltage. Devices become quieter, smaller, and more integrated with their surroundings. It is a reminder that electricity is not the only way to make things happen. At small enough scales, chemistry is movement, energy, and control all at once. Nanoparticles can amplify weak biological signals that would otherwise be undetectable. Biological signals are often faint, easily lost in background noise. Nanoparticles can act as amplifiers, turning subtle interactions into measurable events. When a molecule binds or a reaction occurs, the nanoparticle responds with a change that is much easier to detect, such as altered light emission or electrical behavior. What makes this so powerful is sensitivity. Signals that would normally vanish become visible. This allows earlier detection of disease markers, clearer monitoring of cellular activity, and more precise diagnostics. Amplification does not come from brute force. It comes from designing particles so that small changes trigger large responses. Nanotechnology turns whispers into voices, allowing biological processes to be observed with clarity that was once impossible. Nanotechnology enables coatings that prevent ice from forming on surfaces. Ice forms when water settles, freezes, and anchors itself to a surface. Nanotechnology interrupts this process at the beginning. By engineering surface textures and chemistry at tiny scales, coatings can prevent water from spreading and sticking. Droplets roll away before freezing, or ice forms weakly and detaches easily. What makes this so valuable is prevention rather than removal. Instead of fighting ice after it forms, the surface makes formation difficult in the first place. This has implications for aviation infrastructure and energy systems, where ice poses serious risks. The coating does not add bulk or heat. It changes interaction. Ice becomes less of a threat because the surface quietly refuses to cooperate. Some nanomaterials can strengthen damaged tissues by integrating at the cellular level. Healing usually relies on the body alone, or on materials that remain separate from living tissue. Nanomaterials offer a different approach. Certain materials can integrate directly at the cellular level, interacting with cells and supporting natural repair processes. They can provide scaffolding for growth, reinforce weak regions, or encourage cells to rebuild damaged structures. What makes this so remarkable is intimacy. The material does not sit beside the tissue. It becomes part of the environment cells respond to. Strengthening happens from within rather than from the outside. This opens possibilities for repairing injuries that do not heal easily on their own. Nanotechnology allows materials to participate in healing rather than merely supporting it. Researchers are developing nanoscale systems that operate using the same forces as proteins. Proteins are nature's machines, operating through shape change, binding, and subtle forces rather than brute strength. Researchers are designing nanoscale systems that work the same way. These systems rely on attraction, repulsion, flexibility, and movement rather than rigid paths. What makes this so exciting is alignment with biology. By using the same forces life already understands, these systems can operate smoothly within living environments. They do not fight the rules of the cell, they follow them. This approach represents a mature stage of nanotechnology where design is informed not just by physics, but by the strategies life has refined over billions of years. The result is technology that feels less imposed and more integrated, working with reality instead of against it. As we come to the end of this quiet journey, it is worth pausing to notice how far your thoughts have traveled. We began with objects too small to see, and along the way, we uncovered worlds of motion, interaction, and delicate balance. These tiny structures reminded us that even the smallest details can shape outcomes far larger than themselves. Nanotechnology invites a gentle kind of wonder. It shows us that matter is not rigid or dull, but responsive,
expressive, and full of possibility. At scales beyond our senses, particles drift, surfaces decide behavior, and forces rearrange their importance. Light begins to slow, heat discovers new paths. Life and physics meet in spaces smaller than we once believed possible. There is a quiet calm in this perspective. The universe does not save complexity only for what is vast or distant. It places it everywhere, even within places we once thought were simple, silent, or empty. A grain of dust becomes a landscape.
A surface becomes a conversation. A tiny change becomes a turning point. As your breathing slows and your thoughts soften, you can let these ideas drift without effort. You do not need to hold on to details or definitions. Let the images remain instead, invisible worlds quietly at work. Structures too small to see, shaping the world you touch every day. Precision, giving rise to possibility. If you found something here that sparked curiosity or comfort, you can carry that feeling with you. Not as a question that needs answering, but as a quiet reminder that reality is deeper and more subtle than it first appears. Even when things feel still, there is always motion beneath the surface. Even when something seems simple, there is hidden richness waiting to be noticed. For now, there is nothing more to learn, nothing more to follow. Just rest. Let the smallest thoughts fade first. Let the larger ones loosen and drift away. The nanoscale word will continue its work without you watching. Atoms will arrange themselves. Light will bend and scatter. Life will carry on its quiet complexity. Thank you for spending this time here, exploring the unseen with curiosity and calm. Wherever you are and however your day has been, this moment is yours to end gently. Good night.